Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
Good. Certainly for Mr. Moisey's back here. Amen. Praise God. We have a Father's Day message here today, and it starts in Genesis chapter 31. A continuation, actually, of last week's message. Last week we talked about Jacob, which means like trickster in Hebrew. And he got himself into a world of trouble when he listened to his mom and he tricked his brother out of his father's blessing. So much so that he had to leave town. His brother said he was going to kill him after his father died. So it's like, better get out of town. And his mother, who set up the whole thing in the first place, said, you better leave because your brother knows what you did to him. So, you know, when you're doing the wrong thing, there's lots of people to support you until the repercussions come, and then all of a sudden nobody knows you. We understand how that works. So we fast forward 20 years. He leaves town in a hurry. Mom says, yeah, as soon as your brother calms down, I'll call you. 20 years later, Mom didn't call. But God does. Starting in chapter 31, verse 3. And the Lord said unto Jacob, return unto the land of thy fathers, to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. That's straightforward enough. He says, go back. I got your back. And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field unto his flock. The first thing he does is he wants to talk with his wife. This is a Father's Day message, by the way. Why? It's about men. So men doing the right thing. So the first thing he's done, he calls his wife. You say, well, why? God called him. Yes, but he has roots here. He has two wives, and those two wives are the daughters of his boss, who happens to be his father-in-law. So it's kind of a tricky deal. God says, so go home. But he's got to check with his wives because his sons are born here. His wives, he's got a responsibility for them. But a responsibility isn't just to provide for them. Part of a man's responsibility is to nurture, safeguard, take care of a wife, not just with money. If all I ever did for my wife was to give her money, our relationship would be in deep trouble. He calls his wives because he needs to get some feedback. If a house is divided, it's not going to stand. He understands that. So he's got to get some support. He's got to get some feedback. So we go down to verse 13, and he's talking about how God spoke to him. And he says, God said, I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointest the pillar, and where thou vowest the vow unto me. Now arise, get thee out of this land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. So now, what do his wives say? And Rachel and Leah, his wives, answered and said unto him, is there yet any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted of him strangers? Some hostility here. For he has sold us and quite devoured also our money. For all the riches which God hath taken from our father, that is ours and our children's. Now then, whatsoever God hath said unto thee, do. Okay, it's like they're on side. He didn't know what to expect. So they're ready to go. And it's like, but you know, when God calls you to do something, he's going to make sure everything lines up. Now God's been working on it for 20 years. But the work isn't quite finished. And that's what this is all about. When God called him back, after 20 years, it was time to finish the work. And one of the things he was finishing was working on his fear. Okay, now he's got fear from at least two sides. When you read these passages, you see he's got a fear of his father-in-law. He's scared his father-in-law is actually going to kill him, keep his wives and his kids. But he also knows when he gets to the other end, he has a brother that potentially could kill him too. So it's like, it's not a real comfortable place. So now we go down to verse 36, the same chapter. Now we got to this place where he snuck out of town. He's 3 days away, and his father-in-law finds out. His father-in-law chases after him. His father-in-law is going to catch up because his father-in-law and his people are on horses, but he's moving sheep and cattle through the countryside, so they're not going to move like a fast-running horse. So he knows they're going to catch up. He catches up, and so we see a different side of Jacob. God will always make every person confront their fear sooner or later, because fear is an idol. Why is it an idol? It's an idol because when you fear, you're not trusting God. In other words, the fear is bigger than God is in your life. God doesn't like idols. So he's going to push your face into the fear to deal with it. So anyway, after there's some back and forth here, we get on verse 36, and this is where Jacob's actually dealing with his father-in-law. And Jacob was angry and chode with Laban. And Jacob angered and said to Laban, "What is my trespass? What is my sin that you have hotly pursued after me?" So it's good. He's manning up. He's getting into it. "Whereas thou hast searched all my stuff, what hast thou found of all thy household stuff? Set it here before my brethren and thy brethren, that they may judge betwixt us both. This 20 years, he was there 20 years, like I said. This 20 years have I been with thee. Thy ewes, which are the female sheep, have I been with thee. My ewes and my she-goats have not cast their young. The rams of thy flock have I not eaten. That which was torn of beast I brought not unto thee. I bear the loss of it. Of my hand that thou didst require it, whether it was stolen by day or stolen by night." So it's like, you said it was my fault, no matter if the wild animals said. "Thus I was in the day, the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, my sleep departed from mine eyes." He said, "I had to stay awake all this time. It was hot in the summer, it was cold at night. Thus have I been 20 years in thy house. I served thee 14 years for thy 2 daughters, and 6 years for thy cattle. Thou hast changed my wages 10 times. Then he says something which is remarkable. "Except the God of my father, the God of Abraham, the fear of Isaac, had been with me, surely thou hadst sent me away now empty. God hath seen my affliction and the labor of thy hands, and rebuked thee yesternight." And this is where Laban gets angry. He says, "These daughters are mine, your children are mine, all the cattle are mine, it's all mine." He said, "But I can't do anything about it." The point here is, like I said, God will always make you face your fears. But all of a sudden, we see a different side of Jacob. When he does trust God, he steps out and he acknowledges God in his life. He said, "Except it had been by God, you would have sent me away empty." So the first one he's dealt with quite well, his father-in-law. But this isn't the end of the story, of course. We go down to chapter 32. And actually it starts at verse 6. He's going home. He's getting closer and closer to home. He's getting more and more scared because he's getting closer to home. Verse 6, "And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, We came to thy brother Esau, and also he cometh to meet thee, with 400 men with him." This doesn't sound good. But you know what? When you're scared, you always look at the most negative thing. He's coming to 400 men to massacre me. And then verse 7, "Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed." The thing that he feared most has just happened. "And he divided the people that were with him, and the flocks and the herds and the camels into 2 bands. And he said, If Esau come to the one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape." Now he does something again, which is really good. Verse 9, "And Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, the Lord which said to me, Return unto thy country and to thy kindred, and I will deal well with thee." He's bringing back to God's remembrance. He's scared, so he's reinforcing it in his own mind, and he's bringing it back before God. Very important. It's a good prayer. He's specific about what he wants. Verse 10, "I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies and of all the truth which thou hast showed unto thy servant." It's not about I'm entitled to it. He said, I'm not even worthy of it anyway. "For with my staff I passed over this Jordan, and I am become 2 bands." Verse 11, "Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he come and smite me, and the mother with the children." He puts his fear right on the line before God. I'm scared. My brother's coming. He's going to kill me. He's going to wipe out my family. Of course he's concerned. He's concerned for his family. He's concerned for his life. He can't lead a family if he's dead. He's concerned for his family. He doesn't want them killed. But if he's dead, how does he take care of his family? He is concerned. This is a real deal. Now we go down to verse 12. And now it says, he's saying to God, I will surely do you good and make thy seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. He's bringing God's promise back to God's remembrance. He's working out his salvation. How do you work out your fear? You bring it before God. You tell God about your fear. God, I'm scared, and I need your help. Not to be scared. He will always help you. Verse 13, he lodged there that same night and took of that which came to his hand a present for brother Esau, his brother. This is hilarious. Why is it hilarious? He just finished giving it to God. Now he's going to fix it. He gave it to God, and then he put it right back in his pocket. He lodged it, and I took a present. Verse 14. 200 she-goats, 20 he-goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams, 30 milk camels with their colts, 40 cattle and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses and 10 foals. This is a huge amount of livestock. Back then, I mean, this is the bomb. I mean, this was how you counted what your value was. So it's like, well, I'll just bribe them. That's what we'll do. And he delivered them into the hand of his servants, every drove by themselves, and said to his servants, pass over before me, and put a space between drove and drove. And he commanded the foremost, saying, when Esau thy brother meets thee, and asks thee, saying, whose art thou? And whither goest thou? And whose are these before thee? Then thou shalt say, they be thy servant Jacob's. It is a present sent unto my lord Esau, and behold, also he is behind us. But say, he wants each drove to just really amplify how much he's giving, each one, and each time say, oh, this is another gift. Oh, this is another gift. Oh, by the way, this is another gift. Trying to buy him up. And so commanded he the second and the third, and all that followed the droves, saying, on this matter shall speak unto Esau, when you find him. And say ye moreover, behold, thy servant Jacob is behind us. For he said, I will appease him with the present that goes before me, and afterward I will see his face. Peradventure, he will accept of me. So he gives it to God, and then he says, okay, now let me fix it. Sets up all this big bribe. How does this work? Verse 22. And he rose up that night, Jacob, took his 2 wives, and his 2 women servants, and his 11 sons, and passed over the brook, the ford Jabbok. And he took them and sent them over the brook, sent them over that he had. And Jacob was left alone. There wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. The rest, he wrestled with Jesus Christ. Jesus finally said, we got to stop this now. He said, no, I'm not going to stop till you bless me. He got a blessing, but he also got hobbled for the rest of his life. So how does this all end? Chapter 33, verse 1. After he wrestled with God, he's a changed man. Okay, and he also got out in front of all of his family. He's leading his family. He's not going to hide behind his family. He's actually going to be the first one to have to face whatever happens. His family means something. His position as a leader means something. Chapter 33, verse 1. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men. And he divided the children unto Leah and to Rachel and to the 2 handmaids. And he put the handmaids and the children foremost, Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph behind her most. And he passed over before them. He got in front of them. So anybody got to go, it's going to be me first. He bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. And Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. That did not happen because he got bribed. That happened because God changed the heart of Esau. Even though his blessing was stolen, God did a work in the heart of Esau which nobody else could do. And shame was so he had forgotten about that, and he loved and missed his brother. God will always do what you can't do. We have to trust God for the impossible. If you trust God for the possible, you're not really trusting God at all. You don't really have a heart for God. You're not really believing that He is God if you're not trusting Him for the impossible. Why? Because if it's possible, you can do it yourself. So what are you looking to God for? If it's impossible, you're trusting Him to be God. And a real man trusts God. A real man recognizes that what he says to the children is maybe 10% of what they learn. The other 90% of what children learn from their father is by what they do, not by what they say. They saw Jacob as a flawed man, like most men are. But they saw that he took responsibility, first of all, for his actions. They saw that he took responsibility for his family. They saw integrity in the man, because even though the whole thing about bribery was foolish, it didn't have to happen. Actually, it did have to happen, because all of the bribe that he gave his father was really, or his brother, was really the cost of him fooling his brother in the first place. But that point aside, what did the children see? They saw a man that wrestled with God, that wrestled with his fears, that came face to face with those fears, that stood up before his fears in front of his family, not behind them, who guarded and did what he could for his family. That's what a father is. Now, some people get tied up about, well, I'm not really the father. I just married into them. It's like, but you know, a father's a father's a father. It doesn't matter if they're adopted. It doesn't matter if they came with the spouse that you married, because once they're in your home with you, you're a parent. And it doesn't matter if there's somebody else outside. When they're under your roof, they're learning from you. They're under your spiritual authority. You have a responsibility for them. Fatherhood exists as a way to pass on the best of what we are. And like I said, that isn't about listening so much to what we say. The damage is when what we say is different from what we do. Children pick up on hypocrisy quickly. We want to be consistent as fathers, that what we say matches what we do. What we do matches what we say. And it represents integrity. And that's my message today.
Amen.
Yeah.